pharmacare bill? Where is it?
Conversations are continuing to be productive. This is not an easy thing to come to terms on.
Will it be presented by the end of the week?
Those are conversations that we're still having. There are still additional details that we're working through. But as I've said, and I know that Mr. Davies said the same thing, getting it right is the most important thing. And from the beginning, that's been our objective, is to make sure that we get the right actions taken. And that's more important than expediency. The guidelines in terms of dates for SACA were set out as guideposts for us to work together on these issues. I think we're both agreeing that we're meeting the spirit of SACA by working collaboratively to find a solution. I think we both agree that the conversations we've had have been incredibly productive and are moving well. And on that basis, we're very much meeting the spirit of the agreement.
But realistically, at this point, do you think you can table it before the House rises, expected to happen this week? Like, realistically, the whole session, we hope we can do this, we hope we can do that. Realistically, sure. Do you think you can do it by the end of the week?
I'm sure, like you, when you're negotiating something, that there are a lot of details and that you don't know whether or not you're going to be able to come to terms on the speed at which you want to. There's many. I don't control both sides of the negotiation. I don't even control my side. There's a lot of people involved in this.
What's the main sticking point at this
point?
We
can't share that, obviously. This is there are challenges back and forth, conversations that have been had. But once we are at a point where we are able to announce an agreement, then we can talk in detail about what some of the challenges were to get to that point. But for now, I can just say that the conversations continue to be productive, that they're happening minute by minute, day by day, and that I remain hopeful that we can find a path forward, and we'll have more to say on it soon.
About dental care, Quebec is under the impression that there are negotiations going on and that there's a will to find some kind of agreement by which Ottawa would send money to Quebec. Is it?
Well, look, the plan that we've announced is a fill-in-the-gaps plan. It takes a look at the roughly 9 million Canadians who don't have dental coverage today and says we want to make sure there's full coverage. And we're working with provinces and territories. We've announced our delivery mechanism. We're going to have ongoing conversations with provinces and territories. But what's non-negotiable is that all Canadians, be they in Quebec or be they in any other province, have access to dental care.
But the idea of sending money to Quebec so that they can set up or bonify their plan that already exists, is that something on the table?
Look, I'm not, I've had productive conversations with Minister Dubé. I understand his position. We're willing to continue having those conversations. But at this point in time, there's no decision's been made in terms of how we're working. Well, I think one of the things that is really important to note is that oral health professionals, be they dentists, dental hygienists, denturists, all have been advocating for everybody to have oral health care for a very long time. And so they're extraordinarily motivated to make this work. And so I have a great deal of confidence based on the conversations I'm having with providers that they just want to be treated fairly. And I think that those conversations have been very positive. And I'm very encouraged and believe that that having providers sign on that basis, given the fact that they've been advocating for this for many, many years, over 15 years in many instances, is very positive. And you saw the denturists come out yesterday, extremely positive. You saw the hygienists come out, extremely positive. Other oral health professionals, we continue to work, but those conversations are moving well.
Pourquoi ne pas avoir conclu encore aujourd'hui une entente avec droit de retrait avec pleine compensation pour le Québec sur les soins dentaires?
Ouais, au début, c'est notre but, et de s'assurer que toutes les personnes partout au pays, même si au Québec, a accès aux soins dentaires. Et on va parler avec les provinces en territoire.
Avez-vous parlé au Québec?
Ah oui, j'ai eu la chance de parler avec le ministre Dubé, mais dans un sens plus haut et plus général. Et on va continuer notre conversation plus spécifiquement. Et nous sommes prêts de continuer notre travail. Et notre but est de s'assurer que chaque personne peut recevoir les soins dentaires.
Mais pourquoi ne pas avoir conclu l'entente alors?
Oui, mais on a le temps. Alors, le service va être disponible dans le prochain printemps. Alors, on a le temps de fixer les détails et de travailler avec les provinces au territoire. On va l'utiliser le temps.
C'est quoi le deadline?
Ouais, ce n'est pas une deadline fixe pour moi dans mon tête maintenant, mais c'est juste une idée qu'on doit trouver une solution et je pense que ça c'est absolument possible. Okay, merci beaucoup.
Are you worried about the PQ's rise in the polls?
Well, just like
Are you worried about the Parti québécois rise in the polls in Quebec and what that means for the sovereignist movement?
No, I mean, polls go up and down, and you see that all the time.
Est-ce que vous allez négocier vraiment une entente avec Québec ou vous imposez le programme de soins dentaires fédéral? Et c'est ça que
Ben, il y a des discussions qui se poursuivent avec Québec, mais en bout de ligne, un, c'est tous les Québécois qui gagnent. Puis deux, le gouvernement du Québec qui gagne aussi. Il y a beaucoup d'argent au niveau du programme fédéral qui va au niveau de la prévention. Et on sait à quel point ça coûte cher, les soins dentaires, pour ceux qui ont peu accès à de la prévention. Donc, ça va venir aider aussi financièrement le gouvernement du Québec à terme.
Mais la question, c'est est-ce qu'il y a des négociations?
Le souhait, c'est de s'entendre.
Le souhait, c'est de s'entendre, mais êtes-vous vraiment prêt à donner un droit de retrait avec plein de compensations?
Il faudrait regarder où en sont les discussions avec le ministre de la Santé. Là, mais moi, je sais qu'il souhaite établir une entente avec Québec. C'est le souhait. Mais moi, je pense que c'est gagnant-gagnant là, pour tout le monde là, avec un programme comme celui-là.
La question, c'est quand vous dites le souhait, est-ce que le souhait, c'est vraiment de donner à Québec le contrôle de la forme
Le souhait, c'est de trouver une entente, Hélène. Ça va dépendre où est-ce qu'on est capable d'arriver. C'est ça.
You know, it's holiday travel season soon. Just
Yep.
anything you want to tell Canadians worried about, the potential, issues we saw last year with all the winter storms?
Well, yeah, we saw what happened last year during Christmas. We also saw what happened last year during summer. And that was a huge challenge for everyone. So I met with all the airlines, CEOs of different airlines. They all assure us that they have a program in place. They hired more people. They put protocols in place. So we will normally avoid that kind of problem during Christmas.
Est-ce que vous avez encore confiance au gouvernement en Mme Tait? C'est vous qui l'aviez nommée à la tête de Radio-Canada. Avez-vous encore confiance?
Ben, écoutez, c'est celle qui gère Radio-Canada. Fait que faudrait demander au ministre du patrimoine.
Do you still have faith in Catherine Tait?
She's the one
CBC?
managing CBC.
Do you think she should accept the bonus?
Toujours confiance en Mme Tait. Vous n'avez pas répondu à M. Champagne la semaine dernière. Il y a cette histoire de voyage.
Bien, le mandat de Mme Tait se termine au début 2025. Alors, dès le début de 2024, on va mettre sur pied un comité qui va partir à la recherche des meilleurs candidats au pays pour prendre la relève du côté de CBC Radio-Canada. C'est clair que le diffuseur public traverse une période qui est très difficile en ce moment avec la crise des médias, avec la situation particulière. Donc, ça va être un rôle très important là, pour renouveler la vision, puis le mandat et l'avenir de CBC.
Do you have confidence?
So the Catherine Tait's mandate ends at the beginning of 2025. So right at the beginning of 2024, we will put together a committee that will start searching for the best candidates around the country that can lead our public broadcaster into the transformation that it needs to go through because of the media crisis. So these are the next steps.
You're not saying you have confidence in her. Do you have confidence in Ms. Tait to continue in this role until 2025?
I'm saying that right now we are going to concentrate on finding the right person to lead the public broadcaster at the end of Catherine Tait's mandate.
Ce ne sera pas Mme Tait.
Ben, écoutez, c'est sûr que il y a eu une annonce qui a été très difficile pour les employés à l'interne la semaine dernière. Il y a beaucoup d'incertitudes pour les gens. Ça prend une direction qui est présente, ça prend un leadership qui est fort en ce moment au sein de CBC Radio-Canada pour gérer tout ça à l'interne. En même temps, c'est clair que Mme Tait a un rôle important à jouer auprès des diffuseurs publics internationaux. C'est elle la présidente de ces rencontres-là. Et présentement, tous les médias, tous les diffuseurs publics à travers la planète traversent la même crise qu'on vit ici. Donc, de discuter des solutions puis de l'avenir, c'est important, c'est positif, mais c'est sûr que le moment est pas opportun en ce moment.
Juste par rapport à la FIFA, parce que vous êtes l'ancienne ministre des Sports, on parle $1 milliard de dollars.
Je vais laisser Carla parler de...
Do you think Catherine Tait and the other vice presidents should be accepting bonuses? We understand their statement Friday, they're going to look at senior executive remuneration, but should they accept these bonuses?
Well, I think that they need, everybody at CBC Radio-Canada right now need to consider the financial situation and the impact that it has on employees at large. Now, they will take into account the current situation in revising their policies, and I'll let them answer those questions.
What does it say that you won't say if you have confidence in her? You won't say if
taxes on big grocers rising costs?
I would say everything is on the table. We've been very clear, that what we want is to bring price stability for Canadians. You have seen yesterday we had a good federal, provincial, and territorial meeting to look at steps, because there's a number of things where the federal government can provide national leadership, but there's also something that provinces can look at in territories. For example, unit pricing. You may know that in Quebec is the only jurisdiction in the country with unit pricing, so we want to make sure that we look at all options to provide price stability for Canadians. This is one. We're going to have another meeting in Q1 in the first quarter of 2024. But I think it's somewhat historic, because it was the first time, I think, in our nation history that ministers were gathered to talk about affordability and look at what we can do at the federal side, but also what province can do in territories. So I think it's a step in the right direction, and we certainly want to make sure that we're going to do more for Canadians as they're looking for price stability.
The grocers suggesting any kind of grocery code of conduct would actually just make things more expensive.
Listen, that's not the overwhelming opinion of the industry. I think the industry has spoken loud and clear on that. I am aware that there's still, I would call them somehow outliers in reflecting their view on that. But when you talk to the overwhelming majority of the market participants, they are aligned to say that this would help. And you have to also look at other jurisdictions. I mean, grocery code of conduct have been in place in the UK, for example, and we've seen that this had a positive impact to bring price stability and better price for consumers.
Monsieur Champagne, oui. Au début de la session, la convocation du PDG
oui.
C'est ça qui a marqué le début de la session.
Oui.
Et là, aujourd'hui, avec la session qui tire à sa fin, ça donnait quoi concrètement, ces plans-là que personne
je vous dirais que c'était le début d'un combat. Un combat qu'on fait au nom de millions de Canadiens et Canadiennes. Vous savez, quand j'ai réuni les 5 PDG, c'était une première dans l'histoire canadienne. Parce que vous savez, ça a donné la pression. Si vous le voyez, regardez les commentaires de Galen Weston, par exemple, qui dit depuis ce temps-là, nous, on a pris des mesures. Regardez le président de Sobeys qui dit depuis ce temps-là, nous, on a pris aussi des mesures. Parce que l'idée, c'était un peu de brasser les cartes. Vous savez, ces gens-là ne se sont pas fait brasser depuis des décennies. Et l'idée de mettre de la pression, hier, on avait une réunion fédérale provinciale, on continue à mettre de la pression, on réforme la compétition. Je suis même allé parler avec des acteurs étrangers qui pourraient éventuellement rentrer dans le marché canadien. L'idée, c'est une pression constante qu'on va continuer à faire. Moi, quand j'ai fait ça, ce n'était que le début. On est conscient que ça va prendre des mois à mettre de la pression sur le secteur pour s'assurer qu'on arrive à stabiliser les prix. Par exemple, le code de conduite dans le domaine de l'épicerie, c'est aussi un pas...
déjà prévu avant, le code de
Oui, mais tant mieux, tant mieux. Je veux dire, il n'y a personne qui dit que c'est pas... Tant mieux, l'idée, c'était qu'il faut faire toutes sortes de choses. La réforme de la compétition, je vous dirais que s'il y a un élément qui compte le plus, c'est la réforme de la concurrence, parce que je vais vous donner un exemple très précis. Quand j'ai parlé au PDG d'une des grandes chaînes internationales, la raison pour laquelle ils ne sont pas venus au Canada, la raison qu'il m'a dit quand ils avaient regardé le marché canadien, c'est qu'ils ne pouvaient pas trouver, par exemple, de locaux à louer au Canada. Pourquoi? Parce que les ententes verticales qui existent aujourd'hui entre les locataires et les locataires ne permettent pas, vous savez, dans un rayon de quelques kilomètres, qu'il y ait de la compétition. Imaginez-vous, vous avez un des grands du monde qui me dit, Monsieur Champagne, la réforme de la concurrence que vous faites, ça va nous permettre de regarder le marché canadien sous un nouvel œil. Parce qu'à l'époque, nous, un grand du monde, là, qui est présent dans plusieurs pays, me dit on n'était même pas capable de rentrer au Canada parce qu'on n'arrivait pas à louer de locaux au Canada. Ça vous donne une idée de ce qu'on est en train de faire. Et la réforme, c'est pour ça qu'on veut passer la loi qu'on a aujourd'hui, qui a été votée hier, qui va aller au Sénat. Et j'espère qu'on va le faire rapidement parce que, par exemple, ces ententes-là anticoncurrentielles vont nous permettre d'aller voir, comme je l'ai fait déjà, des joueurs internationaux en disant, écoutez, ça vient de changer, le portrait au Canada change. Et je pense que, tu sais, quand vous avez 3 des grands qui contrôlent plus de 50 du marché, ça vous donne une idée un peu de la concentration. Ce qu'on a besoin, c'est de plus de concurrence.
Justement, est-ce que vous avez confiance que le Sénat peut l'adopter d'ici à ce qu'eux, ils ajournent? Parce que c'était la priorité.
Je le souhaite. Écoutez, évidemment, le Sénat est indépendant. Ça sera aux sénateurs, sénatrices de faire leur travail. Mais je le souhaite parce que, honnêtement, si vous regardez dans les mesures qu'on propose, bien évidemment, il y a ce que les détaillants peuvent faire, il y a, nous, l'information qu'on fait, il y a le code de conduite, mais je pense que fondamentalement, tu sais, quand vous regardez, puis on a fait une étude comparative dans les pays du monde, si vous regardez en Australie, Nouvelle-Zélande, en Angleterre, un peu partout, ce qui fait qu'à la fin, vous avez des meilleurs prix pour les gens, c'est la concurrence. Et le fait que le marché canadien, pas seulement dans ce secteur-là, c'est un marché assez concentré. Historiquement, on a vu, c'est pour ça qu'à la réforme, quand on enlève, par exemple, la fameuse défense sur ce qu'on appelle les gains de productivité ou d'efficience, c'est toutes ces choses-là qui, au cours des décennies, ont fait que le marché canadien est très concentré. Et on le voit dans plusieurs domaines. Et ça, je pense qu'à la fin, si vous me demandez qu'est-ce qui va faire la plus grande différence, c'est le fait qu'on amène plus de concurrence et certainement aider aussi les détaillants indépendants à pouvoir s'installer.
Monsieur le ministre québécois, vous avez à cœur la culture québécoise, je suis certaine. Est-ce que vous avez l'impression que Mme Tait, c'est la bonne personne à la tête de CBC, Radio-Canada en ce moment?
Okay, je vais laisser mes collègues s'exprimer sur cette question-là. Honnêtement, il y a beaucoup de choses cette semaine qui se sont passées. Je n'ai pas porté attention particulièrement sur son témoignage, les derniers commentaires. Mais il y a aussi une chose que je voulais aborder parce que vous ne m'avez pas posé de question sur TDDC, qui est importante, une des entités canadiennes qui est là depuis, je pense, 2001, qui fait plus de 20 ans, qui a financé plusieurs technologies propres. Je trouve ça un peu sans précédent que certaines personnes questionnent l'intégrité d'une des plus grandes firmes de comptables au pays. Vous savez, moi, dès qu'il y a eu des allégations, j'ai demandé une enquête. C'est moi qui ai demandé une enquête. On a un rapport de Raymond Chabot qui a été produit. Mais aujourd'hui, quand même, je sais qu'il y a beaucoup de choses qui se passent dans cette enceinte-là, mais de questionner l'intégrité d'une des plus grandes firmes de comptables au pays, je pense que c'est déplorable qu'on en soit arrivé là. Parce qu'il faut que les gens puissent avoir confiance dans l'intégrité des processus, dans l'intégrité des enquêtes qui sont faites. Et c'est pour ça que moi, j'ai fait le choix à l'époque de dire que ce ne serait pas une enquête interne, ce serait une enquête externe, dirigée par une des plus grandes sociétés de comptabilité au pays, pour justement donner toute la transparence dont les Canadiens peuvent s'attendre et aussi pour restaurer la gouvernance dans cette entité-là.
Minister, did you keep the leaders of the board at Sustainable Development Technology Canada in place? Was it a cover-up, despite knowing that they weren't doing their job? Did you keep those leaders in place when you knew
they
weren't
resigned. So obviously they're not in place. They resigned. What I did was to respect due process. I'm a lawyer. So when you have allegations of wrongdoing, what you do, you investigate. That's what we did. We appointed one of the top, I would say, accounting firm in the country to do that investigation because that's what Canadians expect. Responsible government, transparent government. You don't do the investigation internally. You put that into an accounting firm, one of the most respected, not only in Canada, but worldwide. But today, for people to question the integrity of one of the largest accounting firms in the world, I think it's ludicrous, to be honest. Because you have one of the top accounting firms in the world which did the investigation. And if people have, people are entitled to their opinion, but they're not entitled to their own facts. The facts that the report stands for itself, it's been provided to the committee. And it's exactly why at the time I demanded that we don't do an internal investigation, but we go to one of the top forensic firms in the world to do the investigation for us so that we have findings, and on the basis of findings that we can take decision. And I'm pleased that the Auditor General, which has been working with us all along, is going to conduct its own investigation, and that the people responsible for that organization, let me remind, that was created by Parliament. It's not created by any the Liberal government or people making suggestions. It was created by Parliament in 2001, has been in operation for more than 20 years, and has been providing funding to companies across the nation for more than 2 decades. So One thing, you know, there's a lot that can go in politics, but let's make sure that when we have institutions that have been helping to fight climate change, that you have people who, you know, take allegations seriously, do an investigation, provide the findings to Canadians. Let's make sure that in our country we respect also due process and respect when, you know, you have reports with findings with one of the top accounting firms that comes and say, this is the findings we have, this is the investigation we did. I think we serve no purpose to question the integrity of a firm like that.
Are you confident that taxpayers' money was spent wisely, that the money, the funds actually went to companies that deserved it?
Well, I think that's a question I would invite you to consult the report. The report from Raymond Chabot investigated that based on the mandate that's in the statute, not me. Parliament created the law, based on the contribution agreement that's been done, and also based on the articles of that entity that exists. They did an investigation, and you know, they came with findings. And their findings led then to process, which I said, first of all, you have the top two people who resigned in the leadership. But secondly, I demanded, first I suspended any funding to protect taxpayers, because that's my job, I protect taxpayers. Asked for the investigation, suspended the funding, and then asked for a management plan to restore, you know, my expectation for anyone in the country who gets federal funding is to have the highest level of integrity and governance. So I said, you're going to put that management plan in place. And if I'm satisfied, not only me, but a third party, that you have done what you're supposed to do, then we will consider restoring funding. But until then, we will make sure the approach in that is to be prudent. And I can tell, as a lawyer who has been doing ethics for a good part of my life, I know these processes very well. That's why we allegations, investigation, findings, action, and once we have seen the outcome of that, we'll take the subsequent steps.
Is the grocery code dead without Walmart and Lala's? Would you consider imposing the code on the industry without
Everything is on the table. Everything is on the table. We need every market participant. And like I said, we have seen not only in Canada, but in different jurisdictions, this is one of the steps needed to restore transparency, fairness, because, you know, it's about also rebalancing the power in negotiation between the small and medium-sized producers and the big grocers. So we want them. There's a call from all the ministers, both provincially and federally, for them to sign on, and everything is on the table at this stage.
Toutes les mesures fiscales qui étaient sur la table au début de la session pour les...
Toujours là, toujours là, toujours là.
Mais il n'y a pas de mouvement, mais donc
c'était
le début à l'action de
C'était un début.
C'est le début encore.
Non, c'est pas un début, c'est que ça continue. Regardez ce qui s'est fait en France. Ça ne s'est pas fait en une semaine, ça ne s'est pas fait en un mois, ça ne s'est même pas fait sur un an, ça s'est fait sur des années. Je veux dire, la pression qu'on doit mettre pour stabiliser les prix sur l'alimentation dans une chaîne qui est très, très complexe, d'abord, c'est les détaillants, mais c'est aussi les producteurs, c'est les grandes multinationales. C'est pour ça que je parle avec mes collègues américains, je parle avec mes collègues européens. Vous savez, quand vous regardez ce qui s'est... Il n'y a personne qui peut crier mission accomplie. Il n'y a personne qui a crié mission accomplie non plus en Europe, parce que tout le monde sait que c'est une pression constante qu'on doit mettre pour rétablir une stabilité dans les prix. Alors, pour moi, c'est un travail qui continue. Ça a commencé quand je les ai appelés. Là, on a fait la réforme sur la concurrence. On va avoir le code de conduite dans le domaine de l'épicerie. Mais on va regarder d'autres mesures. Moi, je suis à regarder tout ce qui s'est fait dans les autres pays, tout ce qui s'est fait par le passé. La pression va être constante. Et je suis content que le comité a aussi appelé les PDG à venir s'expliquer devant les Canadiens. Cette pression-là va continuer durant la prochaine année, c'est certain. Merci tout le monde. Je vais aller là parce que si je veux garder mon rôle, il faut que je...
The Indigenous lawsuit in terms of not paying the carbon tax, what do you make of that? That the Indigenous chiefs of Ontario say that they need an exemption as well?
Well, actually, their letter asks for a number of different courses of remediation, and I know that the Department of Finance is looking at their letter closely and communicating with the Chiefs of Ontario.
Do you think have a point?
Listen, this is something that the Department of Finance is deliberating right now, and we want to make sure that people know how to receive their tax rebate. That's part of the challenge, I think, that the Chiefs have identified.
Do you think it's an issue of reconciliation?
Thank you.
Well, I didn't hear you. So.
I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about what's going on at COP right now. This fossil fuel abatement seems to sort of be off the table in the agreement. Would Canada be accepting an agreement without those words in it?
Well, I'm not that close to the negotiations that are going on. My colleague, Minister Gabot, has been managing the engagement there. I mean, what we want to see is a text that's an ambitious text that keeps 1.5 on the table, that's pragmatic in terms of the role of fossil fuels going forward. But at this stage, you know, my hope is that we're going to land somewhere that we can accept.
But can we keep 1.5 alive without a fossil fuel, abated fossil fuel phase out?
Well, so there's phase out of combustion that is not abated. And I think that for us to actually achieve 1.5, you have to see a dramatic reduction in the combustion of fossil fuels that is not abated. There's, you know, the math of climate says that. So at the end of the day, there has to be recognition of that, I think, and my colleague, Minister Cabot, I'm sure is working on that right now. So.
What if OPEC countries refuse it? Where do we go from here?
Well, that's going to be a conversation that we will have to engage. But I would say, you know, at the end of the day, you cannot logically say that you are committed to 1.5, committed to the objectives of Paris, and not recognize that you have to actually reduce the combustion, the unabated combustion of fossil fuels. It's just illogical. So.
What kind of conversations are you having with the Northwest Territories about their request for a carbon tax?
Well, as I said, that is largely the purview of Environment Canada and Minister Cabot. He's been out of town for the last couple of weeks at COP, and so I'm sure he will be having conversations, as I'm sure the Prime Minister will, with the Premier of Northwest Territories. But we've been very clear. We need to find ways to ensure that that implementation of climate policies is affordable, but we're not going to be making any more exemptions.
Do you think that the Chiefs of Ontario have a point that their residents are not receiving the rebate from the carbon price, and there should be some kind of renegotiation of the policy for them?
Well, certainly there's been lots of conversation, even when I was the Environment Minister, about how you address some of the issues that are being raised by First Nations. I think we are always open to hearing those. I don't think an exemption is the right way, but certainly there are rebates that are actually relevant to First Nations, and I think we need to continue to have that conversation. So.
Any kind of exemption of the carbon tax for the Northwest Territories that the Premier's asking for?
We're working on affordability measures in a whole bunch of different respects, whether it's childcare, whether it's dental care, and other things.
The North has some specific challenges, mostly linked to transporting food and other supplies up there. So should there be some more carve-outs for the North?
As I said, we continue to engage with the North, with the new Premier. I congratulate him on his victory. On his election, and we'll engage with the North. Thank you.
The Prime Minister has said the purpose of a carbon tax is to convince people to make changes, and the Premier is saying that if the cost convinced people to change what they were doing, they would have done that in the Northwest Territories a long time ago.
Listen, we'll continue to engage with the Premier. We will meet with him regularly, and we'll talk about the issues. Certainly affordability is an important issue, and we're going to meet with him to make sure that we continue to deliver. Thank you.
Est-ce que ce que vous dites, c'est que c'est pas la façon nécessairement, qu'il y a d'autres mesures d'abordabilité, puis la façon, c'est pas nécessairement avec ce qui est demandé, c'est ça?
L'abordabilité, c'est une question clé dans le Nord et dans les régions rurales. Puis on continue de parler avec des leaders, des premiers ministres, pour faire sûr qu'on peut livrer des initiatives d'abordabilité pour le Nord. Merci.
Okay, merci. Okay. So, Burn Pitts, I know my colleague Mercedes was asking you about supports there last month, but has there been any change there, especially since the Americans, they do have their research out there? We are seeing veterans getting supports there, but is Canada going to be taking a deeper look on the issue?
Well, in actual fact, Canada and our Five Eyes partners are actually conducting research actually in the matter when it comes to burn pits. So again, we continue to fund the research in that area. But my message to veterans or people that have served, if they have been exposed to any chemicals on duty, and let that be burn pits, it's really important that they get in touch with Veterans Affairs Canada, because again, we will assess every case on a case-by-case basis to make sure that they receive the services that they need.
And this Five Eyes research, when can we expect to see study coming from it, or like what's the timeline looking like?
It's ongoing work that is underway right now, and VAC has been one of the funders with respect to that. But I've been told and advised by my department that, again, this is an area that we continue to do some research in, because, again, it's ever evolving, and we certainly want to make sure that we have the latest research that's available.
Yeah. But now we are seeing, Canada bring in presumptive coverage for firefighters, or the framework is being made for a wide variety of toxic smoke inhalation effects with various cancers. Other conditions should be coming next year. We looking at the American example, who are one of our Five Eye partners. They've already taken this action. So what's stopping Canada from doing something to help our vets out?
I think what ends up happening, we have to keep in mind that the Veterans Affairs services that are available in Canada, our system is very different than the United States. So first and foremost, the message that I want to give to veterans, again, if they feel that they've been injured as a result of any type of chemical exposure during their service, it's really important that they get in touch with Veterans Affairs Canada, and then from there the proper assessments will be made and the proper services will be provided.
But some of those diagnostics can still be a challenge for Canadian soldiers, even just going back to 2016 when this was being studied in committee. One of the ADMs did go back and say, something like paratroopers, you can say, oh, your knees are wrecked, you're a paratrooper. That's really easy to diagnose, and he specifically said burn pits. Illnesses are harder to draw that gap there without the proper doctor knowledge, and it's an area where we don't have that much research. So what is stopping Canada from going the more presumptive route, since really there isn't that much research yet and people are suffering and have a hard time eventually drawing that line to their service to now having an illness potentially decades later?
Well, again, that's why, it's very important to make sure that the proper research is conducted in this area, to make sure that we get the cutting-edge research that's available out there. It's important that Canada follow its Five Eyes partners and continue to fund the research, and then from there to have a better understanding of exactly, the links, if you will, and then from there to better provide services to our veterans. But again, I want the message to be very, very clear. If anyone feels that they've been injured as a result of any type of chemical exposures, including burn pits, get in touch with Veterans Affairs Canada. That's why the department is there, is to make sure that we provide services to veterans when they're in need, and we certainly want to hear from them.
Perfect. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you so much.
We'll be able to move forward soon.
What is your government in favor of that?
C-35 is an incredibly important bill, and we're currently looking through the amendment that they've put forward, and we'll have more to share shortly.
Are you in favor of these amendments for protecting, for instance, child care spots in the French language minorities across the country? Like, is this are you in favor of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, we want to ensure, and we are ensuring through our agreements, that official language minority communities will have access to childcare in their language of choice. The amendment that's been put forward, of course, that is the ambition as well. I believe through the plans themselves that that we are doing that work, but of course, as I said, we are looking at the amendment, and we'll be back shortly with more.
Could it be this week in the chamber? The bill could be back, or it's more January?
I don't believe it'll be that quick.
What's up to figure out? If you're in favor of the.
It's an amendment that's been presented in past committee. It's nothing new. Like,
yeah, it did.
I refuse to do it. You know what it is. So
no,
why?
It's not about refusing to do it. I do believe that through the agreements we are ensuring with the provinces and territories that official language do have access, as everyone else does throughout the country, to child care spots. Having said that, the amendment that's put forward, we are doing the work to analyze what it means, what the implications are, how it's reflected in the work that's already been done, and we'll be reporting back soon.
Former Supreme Court Judge Michel Bassarage sent a memo to the committee saying that what the Senate did was the right move. They should do that. I mean, it's not nobody is saying that. It's a former Supreme Court judge, but you're saying it's not right.
I'm not saying it's not right.
But you're just saying that
that's not what I've said.
The plan is already doing that, which Bassarage is not. Is saying the other way around. So.
And of course, we will report back. We're doing the work to make sure that we understand what the amendment means in the legislation and the agreements that are in place, and we'll be able to share more soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you respond to the comment that Rick Perkins made on Twitter this week?
No, I'm not familiar with the comment.
He called you an idiot because of your comments and your putting forward of the bill, the 988 suicide line, saying that it was conservative that actually put that forward.
That was a wonderful motion that received UC from the House, and the government implemented it within 2 years. And to vote it down as a budget line item is actually absolutely shameful when Canadians now more than ever need mental health supports.
Do you think there's an irony of that kind of language and behavior on Twitter about that particular subject?
It shows the lack of sensitivity of Conservatives of the role that women play in moving this country forward, and he should be ashamed of himself.